Call the policy meeting to order. Thank you guys for being here this morning. And Ms. Kadetsky, could you please call the roll?
Miss Melissa Mason,
Here.
Miss Pat Bradford,
I am here.
Miss Stephanie Crable.
All right, thank you. If we could stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Happy Constitution Day, everyone.
All right. I would accept a motion to approve the agenda,
So moved.
and I will second that. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes 2-0. With the minutes, I was reminded that we had originally discussed amending the May minutes, and then last month we passed it and we didn't make those changes. So we put them back on so that we could make those changes. And I believe it was a condensing of Part 4, Policy 3200, and Policy 7300.
Okay, Joan.
So looking at those, that is,
Looking at
it's...
the May meeting. the
Yep,
May
it
minutes, right?
starts at page 2, bottom of page 2, and goes to, hang on, it's a lot, to the top of page 6.
Yeah.
So I would make a motion to combine A and B, as they are
Okay.
repetitious.
I will second that, and I can get with Ms. Kadetsky. I had an idea on how to combine them so that they would be logical.
Okay. I know that there was some concerns that Ms. Craybill had regarding the voting, and what it looked like. I don't recall all of those, and she's not on right now, so I don't know, I don't remember exactly what it was that which ones she was specifically concerned about. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the amended minutes for May.
You mean for August? The
May,
leave May
no.
out.
Well, May amended, because we just made that amendment. Actually, we didn't vote on that. So you seconded. I'm sorry, I've had coffee, I swear.
I think we should probably approve the August minutes and hold May back, and let's fix them.
Before we,
And
okay.
we could throw them anywhere once we get them fixed.
Okay, then I will make a motion to approve August's meeting notes.
Yep. Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that passes 2-0, and we're going to hold May again for another month? Okay. So I'll make a motion to push that forward to next month's policy committee meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes 2-0. All right, moving on to policy updates. Some of these we had approved and just wanted further discussion. I've had the opportunity for policy 4318, use of wireless communication devices. I've had the opportunity to speak with both in the principals meeting, but also separately, a couple principals who are feeling like this is a strong policy. I wanted to kind of get feedback and discuss further what our thoughts were. I know, Mr. Hall, you're elementary, and so you might not see as much of an issue with this, but is there any kind of feedback that you can give on that for us?
My first feedback is going to be to make sure we talk to the middle and high school principals.
Yep.
But yeah, I think leaving as much responsibility on them as they see fit, for sure.
And some of the things that, that I had talked with those teachers about, or principals about, sorry, was many of them have an away for the day policy or protocol that they're using that's pretty consistent across the district. And they feel that it's well received, that students are following it. My concern would be, I know when we looked at the climate survey, the consistency of the implementation of those. So that would really be my only concern as far as this policy goes. Is there anything that you?
I share those concerns. I can read this, but I would say, are we enforcing it? Is it consistent across the district that it's being enforced? If it was, we wouldn't be having so many complaints that we need to get rid of the cell phones or get rid of the wireless communication devices. And we can't see inside, every school at every moment to see what's going on. So that's my only question. If it's a great policy and it's being enforced, how come we still have issues?
Sure, go ahead, Dr. Barr.
I think at that point, because it doesn't become a policy issue, it more becomes an organizational issue where we may need to find out where we're finding those pressure points so we can work with those leaders to adhere to the policy. Mm-hmm. I think there needs to be some, obviously schools have their own culture, climate needs, responsibilities, but you're right, there does need to be some sort of universal expectations. I think if we could find out where if those concerns or problems are isolated to a certain area, we could maybe address them that way. But it's sort of not really, if the policy's solid, then it's really an implementation issue, not a policy issue.
So how do we do what you just said?
I don't know. Honestly, I think if you could funnel those concerns when you're hearing them to us so we could sort of get them warehoused in a specific issue. One-off situations are always going to happen, but if we can start developing a consistency where we're seeing those issues in a specific area. So I think funneling those, unfortunately probably to me, would help me at least figure out where those issues are coming from.
Don't you think that the climate survey addressed that? Don't you think that's already been addressed?
Well, but it's not location specific on
Right,
the
that's what I was
survey.
going to say. It's not, yeah. It was an anonymous survey, so we don't know which areas were.
The example I typically use, and I'm sorry to derail everybody here, but when I was a principal and there were 2 people not putting their grades in their grade book, and I brought the whole staff together in a staff meeting to yell at the whole staff about grade books, when it's really just those 2 people I need to address.
Okay.
So I think it's hard to say we do a universal kind of oversight when we don't know where the issue is. So if we can have people contact us with specific issues they're having, I think then we can sort of isolate and do that work with them.
Just one quick question.
Yeah, of course.
With the propensity for altercations, right, in the schools?
Yes.
Are the phones helping or hurting?
There is no way that the phones are helping. However, that is more of a culture and a climate issue as well. The fact that students are more likely to film than intervene, I think is a cultural issue too. So I think that those are, I think we need to zero in on the safety procedures, the definitive decisions about fights when they happen, and work and support our principals when they have to make difficult decisions. I think the cell phones are a factor of the fighting, not the reason people are fighting, if that makes sense.
So then, as we go forward and we're looking at discipline, we can leave this alone for now, and we're going to address safety and discipline. It's coming up.
Right.
In a number of forums here. So, because we've had such a push about cell phones and wireless communication devices, I don't want to walk away from it.
No, I don't think so either. I think we have talked about coming together with the principals quarterly, like we did in July, August, or whatever it was. I think this is a good topic to bring to principals because it's not only a middle-high issue anymore.
Well, actually, last year we did bring it to the principals, remember? And that's why, they said what we have is working.
Right.
But it's been some time and it doesn't appear to be working.
So I think that's what we zero in on. We say, look, and this is what we're hearing. what are we doing to address it? You know, I think that would at least give a forum for us to really dig into the conversation.
And honestly, I feel as though we should also be asking some of the teachers.
Yeah.
If we're seeking feedback, yes, we've spoken to the principals several times, and I think that that's important, but I think we also need to be speaking to the teachers who are in the classrooms, who
Right.
are dealing with the situations, and really just have those kinds of conversations with them as well.
Yeah, because if the teacher's spending their time telling students to put their phones away, they're not instructing the students.
Correct. Takes away from instructional time, for sure. There was no,
Actually, I'm sorry. excuse me.
oh, go ahead.
I kind of would like to draw some attention under Part B, where it says consequences for unauthorized use. In that third paragraph, where it talks about, the following factors should be considered when determining appropriate consequences. Number 3 used to read to send illicit text messages. We then changed it to illegal. I think it should be back to illicit, because what's an illegal text message? That it's not talking about photos, it literally is talking about text. Because the next one goes into taking and/or
Sending illegal photographs.
yeah, sending illegal photographs. So that one literally, 3 is just literally talking about written text, and I can't.
Do
I
we
don't-
recall why we changed it?
I think
remember
it was just a
doing
matter
it.
of looking at it, and people thought that illicit was not the appropriate word, it should have been illegal, but I believe illicit is
What's
probably
the definition of
better word.
illicit?
I'm looking it up right now.
I am too.
Here's the definition of
Inappropriate.
Sorry.
Not legally permitted or authorized, unlicensed, unlawful.
Okay.
I think, don't forget too, our policies should widen the funnel so our principals have options. So I think that if I will tell you that kids will invent something that isn't in here. So I think the more broad this can be, the more flexibility we have in addressing it.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Brinson, you would recommend that we change illegal to illicit for the text message portion? Is that your recommendation?
That, yes. so that
And you
would-
want to leave legal for photography?
Yes, I would say that,
Yes.
yeah, I would.
Because that's going into the whole
Yeah.
pornography kind of stuff, yeah.
All right, then I will make a motion to change in Part B, third paragraph, number 3, change illegal to illicit.
Second?
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 2-0. And with that change, we do need to send it to
Yep.
the board. So I would make a motion to send this on to the board with
Second.
that change. All right, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes 2-0. All right, so next policy is 3226 and 4205. I know that there had been some concerns. We did pass it, but I know that there had been some concerns. If we feel we need more time, that's fine.
Yeah,
We
I
can
still
move
have
it
the
for-
same concerns I had last time, and I really was thinking this was going to get put off 2 months, not 1, but I still have problems with page, these are my notes from last time. Inappropriate material is just a little too vague, and books that are digital are not there. We spent so much time on digital. I mean, we did pass this so that the things that were here that were in red got passed, but I really think that we need to, just again, like the illicit word, we need to accurately define what we're talking about, inappropriate on the
So
internet.
would you
That's-
like to hold this in
Yeah,
committee?
I think I would.
Okay, so would you like to make that motion?
I move that we hold policy 3226/4205, internet safety, to the next meeting.
I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none.
And maybe we could talk about this in the safety meeting as well. That might be helpful.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 2-0. Policy 3220. This is another one of those that is one that we wanted to bring back. I believe it was sent back for further discussion
Yeah,
and
didn't-
revisions. Ms. Brinson,
Ms.
there
Brinson,
was...
didn't you bring it back?
Yeah, there was one that you had wanted sent back. Was it this one?
It wasn't this one, it was the next one. No, yeah, yes, I'm sorry, it was this one, But there was actually a grammatical thing that Dr. Hamilton pointed out to me that it's a quick change. On page 37, the second paragraph of D, it's got AP principal, it's supposed to be AI principal.
And then can you just remind us of the changes that you had wanted?
Yeah, so the other change was on page 36. Under section A, number 6. It did read like all technological resources must be approved by the district before use. And what we'd like to change it to is technological resources that are paid for, installed, or collect student data must be approved by the district before use. There are websites that teachers use. Go to a new media, we go pull something up. We can't approve of every single website that every single teacher goes to, and the way it would require us to do that. So that's why we wanted to change it to whether it's paid, installed, or collect student data.
So when you say collect student data, you're referring to their progress in reading, their progress in math, those types of programs?
Most are their PII information. If it collects like there's directory information, which typically is just their name and their grade in school, and we're okay with that. But ones where it collects student Power School number, or it collects not just necessarily their work, but goes into, especially if it's something used for assessing a student. And then it may have, more sensitive information. Could be health information, or could it be also information for EC and student support.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of data that we're talking about.
Okay. Did you have any questions, Ms. Bradford?
I don't think so. 37 just hurts my head with all those changes. But it looks like you've just replaced the wording. So I'm fine with it.
All right, so I'll make a motion to amend and correct the grammatical error on page 37.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 2-0. And then I will make a motion to move this on to the board.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 2-0. All right, moving on to policy 4004, which is student voice. As I discussed before, this was something that I had sat down, I believe, end of last year, or the summer of the prior year, with the student voice group. It's a new group now, since some of those students have graduated, but these were the changes that we had discussed making and that were mutually agreed upon. There is one concern, and we kept it in policy for this, and that was on page 41, part 3, that I believe there's a bit of redundancy, or maybe not redundancy, but board committees, if I'm not wrong, are primarily I forgot the word I was going to say, or are not really community members involved. Can somebody correct me? if
Are
I
you
am-
trying to say that elected officials are elected to serve on those committees, and we can't put people on those committees unless it's an advisory capacity, unless they're elected officials?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so three's got some problems.
The
all
other
way through
issue,
it.
yes, the other issue with that part was, and I had discussed this with students, was the voting privileges.
Yeah.
Now, I know and I had this discussion with them as well, I know that for many of the advisory committees, the school board member isn't even a voting member of it, and it consists of that group's bylaws, and that group votes on it. For example, the ACES committee, I don't vote in that. I just participate, and I get what they're trying to tell us, and I advise the board. And so I don't want to put in policy that they have to then have a student that can vote in that. Because that's dictating what those committees, they already have their bylaws. So if they want to change their bylaws, that's fine, but I don't want to dictate what they're trying to do. And so I would recommend that we remove, so I'll make a motion that we remove from page 41, part 3, board committees, and remove and be given voting privileges where allowed.
Madam Chair, I would amend to add the ad hoc committees, board committees and ad hoc committees, skipping over board advisory committees, leaving that board advisory committees, leaving the other two, and then strike really, I think you can strike B completely. And
That's just saying they want representation on the committee.
well, it's
To me,
proportionate
that's
to
how I'm
other
reading.
committee members. That's the concern to me. It can't be proportionate to an elected official that's serving on a committee. So I would say that 3, if you want to keep any of 3, keep board advisory committees and take out board committees and ad hoc committees, because neither one
Okay.
of those cannot happen. And I would strike all of B, and then I have a question about D.
You may be correct. It does seem that there is some redundancy between 3 and B. It's pretty much a repetition, so I will second getting rid of B completely.
And while we're discussing, let's just look at D for a minute. It says selections determined by application in collaboration with students, district leaders, and committee members. So let's say I serve on the curriculum committee, meets quarterly. I'm an advisory to it. And so I know we have at least one student on that committee. I don't know how they got there. They were there when I got there 2 years ago. Or students were there. So I've never seen the committee members on my committee for 2 years vote on adding students or committee members or anything. So I question, is that being done?
I can attest to that is being done on committees like the ACES committee, which EC, and the Gifted Advisory Council. I do know that they do that there, that they do vote in.
Speaking of that.
So as far as the other committees go, I'm unaware of what their practices are.
Okay. Continuing on, under 4A, the very last sentence in that A, top paragraph.
Yeah, thank you for catching that.
Government Association of Student Councils. From there on, high school students and other board committees, board advisory committees, and/or ad hoc committees needs to come out.
Yes, if we're
Strike it
removing it, I
too.
agree.
Mhm.
Thank you for seeing that.
And I'm curious in terms of teams engaged with adult allies. Who are those adult allies? Dr. Barnes, I believe you're going to appoint somebody to handle this. Has that been done? Where are we with all of that? So I'm just like behind I'm just not really up to date on this. And then number 5 says we're going to have a yearly kickoff. And then in B, it says we're going to have an closing summit. I don't remember that happening last year. One of them might have happened, but I believe we had 2. So if we got it in policy, we should be doing it, or we should take it out of policy.
Yeah, I've worked with Julie, and she's going to take over the student voice.
Did it? Okay. So then I'm ending with the striking from the A, for A as well. If you want to amend your motion.
All right, I will amend my motion to remove on page 41, board committees and ad hoc committees from number 3 and part B, and then to also remove from number 4 on page 42, board advisory committees and/or ad hoc committees from A. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 2-0. Next question is, do we want to move this forward to the board?
I think so.
Okay. Do I hear such a motion?
Yes, so moved.
All right, and I will second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 2-0. Next, we have policy 2230. I brought this back because of the development of the sustainability committee and did a write-up of the sustainability
Good job,
committee.
too.
Is there any questions, comments, anything that we need to address with that? Does that seem concise?
I think the language is good. Question, what about task force, and is safety on there or not? I can't remember.
Safety, I believe, is on here.
I think it is.
Yes. So as of right now, the turnaround task force is not listed as an official committee. I have had discussion with Ms. Walker, and I know that she would possibly at some point, I don't want to speak for her, but I know that we had discussed making it an official committee so that it could be maintained and continued. So I would like to keep this in committee, so I would make a motion to keep this in committee until we can add, I don't want to keep bringing it back, until we can add the turnaround task force, until it's an official committee.
And I will second that and discuss in that I have questioned the curriculum committee in terms of there is no board member voting on that. It's just an ad hoc. I mean, it's not an ad hoc. It's just an advisory group. It only meets 4 times a year. So now that we have a new chief academic officer, we're going to get together and talk about that. So it could be that we do some tweaking in what that language is there. Maybe we meet just more than 4 times a year, or maybe we put board members on there that can vote, that kind of thing.
All right, so there was a motion to keep in committee. Was there a motion to keep in committee?
Yes, and a second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes 2-0. The next on here is, oh, it's not on here. How is it not on here?
What?
The Universal Committee Interest Form, that was part of.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's in the packet. That's
Didn't
why I
we
was like.
pass that- Didn't we pass that last time?
We did, but we needed to add
Oh, of
Sustainability
course.
Committee. The other issue is, again,
You want to hold it then?
holding it for Turnaround Task Force. So
Does that mean that we can't move on it? We're not actually doing anything? We're not dealing with our committees if we hold it, or is it?
I don't think they're adding any new members at this point. Ms. Barnum, can you speak to the Turnaround Task Force? There's not any addition currently.
Not that I'm aware of adding new members beyond what happened in the last month.
Right, right.
But I did want to mention the Universal Committee Interest Form is in the attachment with the policy.
Yeah. So I don't know, do we want to keep bringing it back to just keep adding?
I think so. Just pass it, and then we'll bring it back if we need to.
Okay,
I
so,
just wouldn't want to keep anybody from doing whatever they needed to do. Let's say somebody now wants to be on the Sustainability Committee, and we haven't passed this, then it's not in process, so.
correct. So,
I move
okay.
that we go ahead and pass it
All right.
as written.
And I will second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 2-0. And then, y'all, we're going to do a quick meeting today. This is policy 3225, 4312, 7320. This is a second reading policy.
Ms. Brinson, I have a question. Did this change at all from last month?
We just passed it.
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay. Well, reading it last night, I had, more brilliance or something. So, on page 55, second paragraph, the struck information. Policy applies regardless of whether such use occurs on or off school property and so on. Why is it being taken out? Is it replicated somewhere else?
The reason why we did, because we added to the sentence before, any school system resources on or off school system property. We felt like just that little statement.
Okay.
Covered all the rest.
Covered all
Okay.
the rest.
And maybe, and again, on page 56, number 5, those last terms, obscene, defamatory, profane, pornographic, harassing, abusive, advocating illegal acts, or considered to be harmful to minor. I really wish we could grab that language that we've used, the specific 3 that are upheld by the law, the General Assembly.
We had pulled that actually from the Children's Internet Protection Act, something to follow for E-rate.
Okay.
And that's specifically written in those terms, I believe, and that's why we have it written that way, because that's what we have to make sure that we are following.
Okay, because if I'm not mistaken, general statutes does not work with obscene or pornographic. They just don't, it doesn't compute in their world of legal language. I remember that from last year.
Obscene, or what was the other one?
Pornographic, it's
Correct,
undefinable.
but that is what we specifically have to. We have to filter for those things, otherwise we will lose E-rate funding. And as a matter of fact, there's actually a new law coming out where it's going to probably cause some other changes to this, where we have to make sure that staff members aren't trying to access pornography from the machines, and we have to have policies and procedures in place and make sure that we are, reporting anything if we find anybody doing it. So we'll be working through adding those pieces to this that we need to add.
Okay. And 5 there was 6, now it's 5, the second part that's struck, the use of anonymous proxies. Why was that removed? Is it-
Because
or is it
basically,
somewhere-
that's just one example of trying to circumvent network security measures.
Okay. Comment generally from 57 and 58, there's a lot of knots, and it's always troubling when you have a long policy that's just full of knots. But then later, and I had written are prohibited from, but later on in the policy you start adding are prohibited from, so I'm going to just let it go. And I will point out on page 5920, number 20 was 25, views may be expressed on the internet or other technological resources are representing the view of the school board. That applies to us as well.
And I will say that all of these are to try to build a better mousetrap, because technology moves so quickly that a lot of these are just in there to try to address issues that we know could be forthcoming.
I get it. So I'm good with it. So I move that it goes for second reading to the next board meeting. And it is policy
All right, and I will second that.
3225, 4312, 7320.
I will second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Did you say aye?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any opposed? That passes 2-0. And that's all I have for today.
Record timing.
You're welcome.
Move to adjourn.
I will second that.
Actually, you know what?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, that the minute you do that, but the school safety policy, 1510, 4200, and 7270, and bullying and harassing, 4329, 7311, I really think that we need to put them on an agenda, but we've got all this coming up with discipline and safety, but those policies need to be looked at. Are we enforcing them universally across the board? He's kind of frowning at me, but we just got to do something about school safety. We just have to.
Can you repeat those?
Sure.
So that I can put those on there. Sorry.
1510/4200/70-270, which is school safety.
Okay.
And then bullying and harassing behavior prohibited, 4329/7311. It seems like every child who does terrible things in schools with weapons, the family report that they were bullied. It's just, people are concerned about safety, and we're going to have to dig into it. We're just going to have to.
There was a motion to adjourn and
Second.
a second. You made the motion and a second. You can't second your own motion, Ms. Bradford.
That's right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes 2-0, and we are adjourned. Thank you all for your time.